I was lying on my couch, half watching an old sitcom rerun with a cup of cold coffee in hand, when I made the mistake of opening Instagram. There it was, Emma's latest post. The caption read, "Grateful beyond words, family is everything, blessed adventure of a lifetime." The photo, a flawless sunset over the Grand Canyon. Her 3 kids sat cross-legged in coordinated denim and white. Her husband, Brian, had his arm around her, all toothy smiles and windswept hair. Emma stood at the center, hair catching the light just right, her face serene, angelic almost. My thumb hovered above the like button. I didn't press it, because I knew the truth. That perfect family portrait, I was there when it was taken. I saw the chaos, the shouting, the sheer volume of sweat and resentment that went into staging that moment. I watched Emma snap at her daughter for blinking too much, order her husband to fix his face, and threaten to take away screen time if the kids didn't smile. And yet here it was, immortalized, curated, filtered, a lie, polished into something enviable. People were eating it up. The comments section buzzed with admiration. "This is goals. How do you make it look so easy? Such a beautiful family, Emma." Easy. That word made me laugh out loud. I nearly choked on my coffee. I should back up a little. Emma is my sister-in-law, my husband's younger sister, the youngest of 3 and the uncontested queen of carefully crafted chaos. She's one of those people who manages to make even spilled milk look aesthetic, if it fits her feed's color palette. We decided, against my better judgment, to take a road trip together. 2 families, 1 RV, thousands of miles across the US, from Pennsylvania to Arizona. It was supposed to be bonding time. A chance for our kids to grow closer, for us to share gas costs and maybe make some memories. Emma had pitched it as raw and real family time. Raw? Maybe. Real. Not in the way she meant. From day one, Emma had her phone out like it was an extension of her hand. Every moment had to be filmed, photographed, positioned. It didn't matter if the kids were tired or hungry or cranky. If the lighting was good, we were stopping for a photo. Brian, her husband, seemed used to it. His eyes had this checked-out glaze every time she bossed him into place for another candid. He'd smile on cue, then go back to scrolling Reddit as soon as she turned around. They're kids. Don't get me started. Sweet, but exhausted. Like tiny actors in a never-ending performance. I tried at first to play along, smiled for pictures, suggested cute spots, thought maybe I was just being judgmental. But as the days went on, the cracks widened. Emma wasn't just documenting the trip, she was scripting it, and the rest of us were just supporting cast. One morning in Tennessee, I overheard her whisper to Brian, "Make sure you don't wear that shirt again, it clashed with yesterday's grid." I didn't even know what that meant until I saw her Instagram layout later. Perfect color harmony, perfect sequencing, all lies. The funny thing is, I wasn't even angry at first, I was fascinated. How could someone curate life so obsessively, so convincingly, and believe no one would notice the mess behind it? That's when I started noticing and writing. I kept a small notebook in my backpack. At first, it was just for our own schedule, snack lists, stops, fuel. But one evening, after Emma spent 15 minutes yelling at her son for spilling juice in the RV, then posted a photo captioned, "Best part of traveling? The little accidents that make the sweetest memories," I picked up my pen and wrote, July 12th, 6:43 p.m. Emma screamed at Max, full volume, threatened to cancel Yellowstone, posted smiling pic of Max with "Oops." Moments caption minutes later. It felt necessary, like I was collecting reality before it vanished under another Valencia filter. I didn't plan to do anything with it, not at first, but the more I saw, the more I realized that people needed to know, not just about Emma, but about the whole damn illusion. Social media had turned motherhood into a performance, vacations into content, children into props. And Emma? She was just better at it than most. The problem was, I was a part of it now. Every time I smiled for a photo, I became complicit. Every time I stayed silent while Emma reshaped the narrative, I helped build the lie. So I stopped liking her posts. I didn't comment. And one day, I looked at my notebook and wondered what would happen if I started showing the truth. If you think social media tells the truth, think again. There's a whole world behind those perfect pictures. Subscribe now, because what I'm about to tell you, it's only the beginning. Emma wasn't always like this, at least not to this degree. I remember when she first joined our family. Smart, witty, a little dramatic, sure, but with a warm laugh and a love for spontaneous adventures. Somewhere along the way, things changed. Or maybe I just hadn't looked close enough before. When she pitched the road trip, it sounded fun. 2 families, 8 of us total. Emma, Brian, their 3 kids, me, my husband, and our daughter. We'd rent an RV, split costs, and see the country. Yellowstone, Arches, Zion, the Grand Canyon. She called it a shared adventure of a lifetime. Her pitch deck, which, yes, she made, had Canva graphics and a daily itinerary with blocks for golden hour photo time. I should have known then. The RV was a beast. Crammed but comfortable enough, with Emma taking the queen bed in back as Content HQ. She arranged everything: sleeping assignments, driving shifts, even bathroom schedules. Brian went along with it, as usual. He had that look, like a man who'd learned resistance only dragged things out longer. Our first full day on the road started okay. The kids were giggling, snacking, fighting over who got the top bunk. Emma was already taking photos, adjusting lighting, asking me to step slightly to the left so the lens could catch the mountains in the background. By lunchtime, I noticed it. The mask. Emma's tone would shift the second the camera was off. Sweetness dissolved into orders. She didn't yell, not at first. Just a sharpness, a clipped efficiency. "Don't wrinkle that shirt, Max. I told you we're doing family photos at the Overlook." Or to Brian, "Fix your collar. It looks sloppy." That night, after we'd set up camp near Shenandoah, she spent an hour arranging marshmallows on sticks for a s'mores photo. She didn't let the kids eat them until she'd gotten the shot she wanted. One of them cried when his marshmallow slipped off and into the fire. Emma sighed, pulled another from the bag, and muttered, "Not until I say so." That was day 1. By day 3, the kids had started resisting. Max refused to wear the outfit Emma laid out. Lucy wouldn't smile. Emma bribed, threatened, then snapped. I caught the moment in my notebook. July 10th, 9:14 a.m. Emma says, "If you don't smile, I swear I'll leave you behind at the next rest stop." Then takes group selfie. It would have been funny if it weren't so familiar. I've seen performative parenting before, but this was next level. Emma didn't just want to look like a good mom, she wanted to look transcendent, unbothered, effortless. Her caption said things like, "Motherhood is the wildest ride, so grateful for these little souls." In reality, her little souls were quietly miserable. They weren't bad kids, just exhausted, overstimulated, confused. They wanted to play, not pose. They wanted their mom, not their mom's camera. Brian stayed mostly silent. He drove, nodded, fetched snacks. Once, during a stop in Kentucky, I saw him sitting by himself near a picnic table, scrolling through sports scores. I asked if he was okay. He shrugged. "She means well," he said. "Just gets intense." Intense. That word stuck with me. Emma didn't see what she was doing as controlling. She saw it as documenting, preserving memories, making meaning. But what memories were we really making? My daughter Rachel asked me that night, "Why does Aunt Emma always take pictures instead of playing?" I didn't know what to say. How do you explain obsession to a 7-year-old? I started noticing more things. How Emma would wake up an hour earlier than everyone to do her makeup, before pretending to have just rolled out of bed photos. How she'd stage coffee mugs on the picnic table and tell Brian to hold it with both hands like you're soaking up the moment. How she'd snap 10 photos, delete 9, and sigh dramatically if she wasn't happy with the angle. The facade was cracking, and I couldn't unsee it. Still, I kept playing along, for peace, for the kids. But inside, a quiet fury was building. Not just at Emma, but at how easy it was for lies to be celebrated. How people online were cheering her on, calling her inspiring, while we lived in the shadow of her staged perfection. At a gas station in West Virginia, I caught a glimpse of her editing photos in Lightroom, turning a cloudy sky pink and golden. She smiled, satisfied, and said, "No one needs to see how tired we really are. It ruins the vibe." That night I wrote again. July 11th, 7:23 p.m. Emma edits out Lucy's grass-stained knees, tells her not to mention the bee sting in comments. The kids were props. We were props. And I'd had enough. What I didn't know yet, what none of us knew, was that the worst was still to come. The cracks were spreading, and soon there'd be nowhere left to hide. You'd think eventually the kids would get used to it. The constant photos, the staged laughter, the way their mum treated every moment like a commercial shoot. But they didn't, and neither did I. Some mornings, I'd wake up early and sit outside the RV with a thermos of coffee just to enjoy 10 minutes of silence, but even those became rare. Emma would be up before the sun, setting out breakfast like it was a prop table. She lined up bowls of fruit, laid out placemats, and rearranged the juice until it caught the light just right. Then she'd call the kids. "Act like you're laughing," she told Lucy one morning. "No, not like that, real laughing. Tilt your head back, okay? Rachel, fix your hair." "Max, stop fidgeting." The kids hadn't even touched their food. And then came the posts. Slow mornings with my little ones. Nothing better. They'd barely eaten. Lucy had spilled milk on her dress and got scolded. Max sulked the whole time. But online, pure joy. Perfect calm. A slice of domestic bliss. What people didn't see was the aftermath. The whining, the tantrums, the forced apologies. It wasn't the kids' fault. They were exhausted, and I couldn't blame them. One afternoon in Missouri, we stopped at a roadside diner. Emma insisted on everyone wearing matching denim shirts for a nostalgic Americana photo. It was 93 degrees. The shirts were stiff and uncomfortable. Max begged to take his off. Emma refused. "We only need 10 minutes. "You'll survive." She posed them against a red and white wall, made Brian crouch down to get the right angle, barked at Rachel to tuck in her shirt. Max finally snapped. "I hate this trip," he yelled, tugging at the buttons. "You only care about your stupid pictures?" The moment froze. Emma's smile vanished. She stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Don't you dare embarrass me," she hissed. "Go sit in the car." No one moved. Max's face crumpled. He didn't cry, he just turned and walked away. Later that night, she posted the photo. All three kids grinning under the hot sun, ice cream cones in hand, Brian behind the camera. Little pit stops, dual big memories road trip vibes. I couldn't take it anymore. I started taking photos too, not of the posed moments, but of the ones in between. Max scowling in the back seat, Lucy wiping her tears with a napkin, Emma snapping at Brian while her phone screen reflected in her sunglasses. I didn't post them. I saved them, quietly, carefully. It wasn't revenge, not yet. It was preservation, a record of what we'd all lived beneath the filter. Emma had no idea. One day, at a dusty gas station in Oklahoma, she lost it over spilled juice. Lucy had accidentally tipped over her cup climbing back into the RV. It splashed across the floor, sticky and red. Emma screamed, not words, just this raw, piercing noise. Then, just like that, she turned around, took a breath, and said, "No big deal. Accidents happen." 2 minutes later, she took a selfie with Lucy and posted it. When the messes become memories. Traveling teaches patience and grace. I nearly dropped my phone. It wasn't even hypocrisy anymore, it was delusion. Brian and I crossed paths outside while refueling. He looked worn down, eyes shadowed with fatigue. I asked him how he was holding up. "She's not always like this," he said. "At least she wasn't." I didn't say anything. He continued, "It's the internet. It changed everything. She needs the validation, the likes, the DMs. I think she believes it now, that she's this person, that we're this family." I thought about that all night. Did Emma actually believe the version of events she was posting? Had she blurred the lines so completely that she couldn't tell the difference anymore? That terrified me more than anything. The kids started noticing too. They whispered when Emma wasn't looking. Lucy asked Rachel if she had to smile even when she was sad. Max refused to get out of the RV for a photo op in Texas. Emma bribed him with candy. He still wouldn't budge. "Fine," she said sharply. "You can ruin the photo if that's what you want." But he wasn't ruining anything. He was just tired. I kept writing. Every evening when the kids were asleep, I added to my journal. Notebooks don't lie. They don't need filters. The thing is, people always assume drama on the internet comes from lies posted by strangers. But this wasn't some influencer I'd never met. This was Emma, family. And no one online had any idea who she really was. Not even, I feared, Emma herself. I didn't know it yet, but something inside me had already shifted. I was past the point of just observing. The idea was forming slowly, quietly, with every photo I saved, every note I wrote. One day, I thought, someone should see this, and if no one else would tell the truth, maybe it had to be me. We reached the Grand Canyon on day 11. Emma had talked about it non-stop since the beginning of the trip. It was her golden destination, her bucket list moment. She said it was where she planned to take the defining photo of the journey. She'd been collecting outfits for it since spring. We were all exhausted by then. The kids were short-tempered, Brian had a tension headache, and I was barely holding it together. But Emma? She was radiant with anticipation. The night before, she laid out coordinated clothes for everyone. Pale blue and beige, she said, to complement the natural tones of the canyon. She made us set alarms for 4 a.m. "Golden hour doesn't wait," she told us. I looked at Rachel, her eyelids fluttering with sleep, and almost said no, but I didn't. I got up, dressed her in a cotton dress, and led her outside in the dark. The canyon, I'll admit, was breathtaking. Even through my fatigue, it stunned me. Massive, quiet, ancient, the kind of place that silences you. Emma wasn't silenced. She was posing us like action figures. "Brian, lift Max higher." "No, like you're laughing." "Lucy, hold hands with Rachel." "No, switch sides." "Smile." "Not that smile, your real smile." Max yawned and nearly dropped his water bottle. Rachel tripped over a rock. Brian looked like he was trying not to scream. Emma's jaw tightened. Her voice was high and clipped. "You're ruining the light," she snapped. Then Lucy sneezed, a big, wet, nose-running sneeze. Emma turned around, furious. "Are you kidding me? Right now?" Lucy's eyes filled with tears. I stepped in quickly, handing her a tissue, guiding her away. Emma stood there, gripping her phone like it had betrayed her. And yet somehow, an hour later, she posted the photo. All 5 of them, smiling at the canyon edge, sun glowing behind them, clothes untouched by dirt or snot. Woke up at 4 a.m. for a once-in-a-lifetime view, and made memories that will last forever. Grateful beyond words. "Family first, nature heals." That caption made something twist inside me. It wasn't just misleading, it was a full rewrite, a script, completely separate from what we'd lived. I felt like screaming. Instead, I pulled out my notebook and wrote, "July 21st, 6:12 a.m. Lucy cried after being yelled at for sneezing. Brian silent. Max refused another pose. Rachel scraped her hand. Emma edited out the bandage in Lightroom. Later that morning, Emma asked me to take a few behind-the-scenes shots of her looking unposed. She positioned herself on a rock, hair loose, mug of tea in hand. "Candid vibes," she said, adjusting her angle. I snapped the photo, then watched as she changed the background sky using an app. I asked, "Isn't the real sky good enough?" She didn't even look up. "This one has more mood." I looked at the real sky, clear and deep, the kind that made you feel small in the best way. But I guess it wasn't aesthetic enough. Things went downhill fast that afternoon. Max got sick. We'd been moving non-stop and he'd barely eaten anything but snacks and bribery candy. He started throwing up near the visitor center. While Brian helped clean him up, Emma paced, muttering that this would ruin everything. I offered to take Rachel and Lucy to a shaded bench. Emma nodded stiffly. When I returned 20 minutes later, Max was in the RV and Emma was sitting alone with her phone, furiously typing. A few hours later, she posted again. A reel this time. Slow-motion clips of her spinning with the kids, laughing by the edge. Voiceover of her saying, "Being a mom isn't always easy, but every second is worth it." People flooded her comments. "You're such an inspiration. Goals. Teach me how to be this kind of mom." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Rachel tugged on my sleeve that evening and whispered, "Why does Aunt Emma post things that didn't happen?" I had no answer. That night I sat outside the RV with Brian. We didn't talk for a while, just listened to the cicadas and the wind over the canyon. Finally I said, "You okay?" He gave a tired smile. "I think we lost the plot." That line stuck with me. Lost the plot. Because what story were we even telling? What did these photos, these captions, have to do with who we really were? Emma believed she was building something beautiful, a digital scrapbook, a legacy. But it wasn't real. It was curated fiction, polished and published for praise. And I'd had enough of being a background character in her fantasy. After the Grand Canyon, something shifted. Not just in me, but in the air around all of us. The smiles came slower, the silences stretched longer. Even Emma's Instagram posts felt more frantic, like she was working harder to hold together an image that was already falling apart. I kept documenting, quietly, discreetly. At this point, my notebook was almost full. I'd taken dozens of unposted photos too. Not because I had some grand plan, but because I couldn't let this version of the story be the only one remembered. We reached Zion 2 days later. The red rocks shimmered in the heat. Emma made us wear cream and earth tones this time, claiming the contrast would pop. Rachel had a small rash on her leg from all the hiking, and Emma nearly cried when she saw it in a picture. She crouched down with an editing app and erased it pixel by pixel. Lucy stood nearby watching. "Why are you fixing her leg?" she asked. Emma didn't answer. That night I wrote, July 23rd, 8:11 p.m. Emma digitally erased Rachel's rash. Brian asked if she could post less for a while. She told him, "This is how I decompress." Then posted a reel with gentle parenting hashtags. It didn't feel gentle. Not to any of us. Brian pulled me aside the next morning. He looked worn down, like a man holding onto the last frayed string of something already broken. "She's not sleeping much," he said. "Every night up late, editing, reading comments, checking numbers. I've tried talking to her." I asked him what he wanted. He hesitated. "I want my wife back. The one who used to laugh without needing to film it." That stuck with me more than anything else he'd said. Meanwhile, the kids were starting to internalize it all. Lucy asked if she could change her shirt because it didn't match the mood. Max, who used to love drawing dinosaurs, spent an entire day trying to recreate one of Emma's Instagram photos on paper. He got frustrated, crumpled it up, and said, "It's not good enough." That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about Emma anymore. The performance was bleeding into them, shaping their sense of worth, their view of happiness, of honesty. Even Rachel, usually calm, had begun asking, "Do I look okay for the pictures when we stopped somewhere?" I always said yes, but inside I felt sick. I didn't want my daughter learning that love required performance, that smiles were only valid if they got likes. So I started printing photos, the real ones, in black and white, unfiltered, just as they were, crying faces, tired eyes, laughing when no one was watching. I kept them in an envelope at the bottom of my bag. Proof. By the time we hit Arches, I'd accumulated a stack of truths Emma would never share. Not because they were scandalous, but because they were honest, raw, human, everything she refused to be online. And yet, despite everything, I still hesitated. She was family. She was lost, not evil. She wasn't trying to hurt us, she just didn't know how to stop. But then came the moment that turned my uncertainty into conviction. We were having dinner by a lake in Utah. Emma had set up her phone for a time-lapse. We'd agreed, no phones during meals, just 1 hour. 15 minutes in, Max spilled pasta on himself and got up, frustrated. Emma lunged for the phone, furious that he'd messed up the frame. When he cried, she told him he was being dramatic. Told him she was just trying to make a memory. Max ran inside the RV. She didn't follow him. Instead, she reset the phone. And I saw something break in Brian's face as he watched her. Later, in private, he said quietly, "I think she's forgotten these are real people, not props." I couldn't sleep that night. I pulled out the notebook, looked at the entries, the timestamps, the photos. And then, for the first time, I asked myself a question I hadn't dared voice before. What if showing people the truth wasn't an attack, but a wake-up call? What if someone needed to hold up a mirror? The cost was high, I knew that. Families aren't built to survive exposure. But what about the cost of silence? Rachel asked me the next morning, "Are we going to have a fun day today or a photo day?" And I said before I could stop myself, "Let's make it a real day." She smiled. That was the moment I knew I couldn't unsee, unfeel, or unknow what this trip had shown me. And once you see clearly, pretending becomes unbearable. I still didn't know exactly what I was going to do. But I knew this. The time for silence was ending. We reached Utah's Capitol Reef by midday. The heat had turned sharp, dry, relentless. The kids were restless. The RV smelled faintly of sunscreen and exhaustion, and even Emma's enthusiasm was beginning to crack at the edges. But still she persisted. One more reel, one more perfect angle. That afternoon, while driving through a desolate stretch of red stone and sagebrush, we saw a small stray dog wandering along the road. It was scruffy, panting hard, ribs showing beneath dust-matted fur. The kids were instantly concerned, voices rising in worried chaos. Emma's reaction was different. "Oh my God," she muttered, already pulling out her phone. This could be such a moment. Before anyone could say a word, she stepped out of the RV, phone in one hand, water bottle in the other. She called gently at first, "Hey buddy, come here." But the dog hesitated, keeping its distance. "Ugh, come on," she groaned. "I'm trying to help you." The rest of us watched in stunned silence as she crouched dramatically, camera still recording. When the dog didn't approach, she clicked her tongue impatiently, then tossed some trail mix on the ground and snapped a burst of photos. The kids were watching, confused and hopeful. Brian looked away, arms crossed. Then it happened. The dog, still wary, began walking off toward a rocky patch. Emma, visibly frustrated, stood up, muttered something under her breath and kicked dust in its direction. I flinched. She didn't know I had my phone out too. I wasn't trying to film her, not at first, but my camera had been recording ever since she'd said, "This could be such a moment." I caught it all. 2 hours later, she posted a carousel of photos. "We found a stray today." My heart cracked wide open. Teaching the kids compassion is everything. We offered water, love, and hope. "Be kind always." She included a photo of Lucy reaching toward the dog, carefully cropped to hide the dirt Emma had kicked. The comments came fast. "You're such a light. Thank you for raising kind kids. This made me cry. More people should be like you." I felt nauseous. That evening I sat alone at a picnic table, watching the canyon walls burn gold in the setting sun. My phone was in my hand. The video was there, waiting. Part of me still hesitated. She was family. This could destroy her. But another part, the part that had watched the kids shrink under her expectations, had seen Brian pull farther away, had heard my own daughter doubt her worth, knew that silence made me complicit. Emma had crossed a line, not just with the dog, but with her complete rejection of reality. She didn't just edit pictures anymore, she edited truth. And then fed it back to the world like it was nourishment. I re-watched the clip, her voice. The moment she turned, the dust flying, the phone still clutched in her hand. I didn't want revenge, I wanted honesty. And I realized that's exactly what she couldn't allow. I didn't post it that night, I wasn't ready, but I saved the video in 3 places: my phone, my laptop, and a secure cloud folder. For the first time, I started thinking beyond this trip, about what I could say, what I could show if I finally stepped forward. And that terrified me. What would my husband say? What about the rest of the family? Would they see it as betrayal? Would they ask why I hadn't just let it go? But how could I let it go when the people most affected by her behavior didn't even know how to name it? Later that night, while the others were inside watching a movie, I sat outside with Brian. I showed him the clip. He watched it quietly. When it ended, he rubbed his face and said, "I don't know who that is anymore." Then he looked at me, voice low. "If you're thinking of doing something, I won't stop you." That was the moment it became real. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't overreacting. What What I'd been recording and collecting was truth, and it wasn't mine alone anymore. The next morning, Emma acted like nothing had happened. She laughed over coffee, posted a morning update, and asked me to help her film a gratitude moment with the kids. I looked her in the eye and said, "Maybe they just need a break." She blinked, surprised, then forced a smile. "You're probably right." But I knew she didn't believe it, and I knew I'd made my decision. The time for documenting was over. The time for action had begun. I waited until we were home. The trip ended in a quiet, awkward silence. No grand goodbye, no final photo. Just tired kids, a tense drive, and a feeling that something had quietly fractured beyond repair. Emma hugged us all like everything was fine, posted a smiling group photo with a heartfelt caption. What a journey, so many memories, grateful beyond words, family love. And then drove away with Brian and the kids like nothing had happened. I didn't like confrontation. I never had. But after 3 weeks of staged affection and curated lies, the truth felt like a living thing inside me, begging to be heard. So I opened my laptop and began typing. I didn't name her. I didn't even use our names. I wrote about the trip, the pressure to perform, the behind-the-scenes reality behind every perfect picture. I shared pieces from my notebook, dates, details, phrases that still echoed in my head. I uploaded the video of the dog moment, not to shame her, but to illustrate how deep the illusion went. Then I posted it as a thread on my private account. I didn't expect much. I figured a few friends would read it, maybe some strangers. I wasn't trying to go viral, but it did. By morning, the thread had tens of thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. People shared their own stories of sisters, cousins, influencers they knew personally who lived double lives online. Some called it brave, others called it petty. But the reaction was overwhelming. Someone messaged me, "You just described my sister word for word." Another said, "Thank you for saying it out loud." We're drowning in fake joy. By the end of the week, I had journalists reaching out, strangers asking for interviews. Emma's online identity was being discussed in comment sections and forums without anyone ever knowing it was her. But of course, she found out. She called me. I almost didn't answer. Her voice was shaking, tight and high-pitched. "Why would you do this?" she said. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I stayed calm. I told the truth. "You humiliated me. I didn't use your name. Everyone knows it's me." There was a pause. Then she whispered, "You ruined everything." I didn't say anything for a while. Then I asked, "Did you ever think about what this was doing to your kids?" Silence. She hung up. Later that day, she deleted her Instagram account. It felt surreal, like I'd broken something sacred, and I wasn't sure whether to mourn or celebrate. The family group chat exploded. Some relatives defended her, others stayed silent. A few reached out to me privately and said, "We've noticed it for years. You just finally said something." Brian didn't call, but I got a message from his sister. 2 lines. "Thank you." Someone needed to. The fallout was messier than I'd anticipated. I wasn't surprised Emma was furious, but I hadn't expected the weight of it, the guilt, the relief, the confusion. I hadn't realized how lonely it would feel to be right. Online, I was being praised and dragged in equal measure. She exposed the toxic truth behind curated motherhood. She's a jealous attention seeker. Finally, someone had the guts to say it. Typical bitter in-law move. I didn't respond. I didn't post anything else. I just sat with it. And in the quiet, the question came again. Had I done the right thing? I kept replaying moments from the trip. The way Lucy flinched when Emma raised her voice. The look on Brian's face when he said he missed his wife. The kids asking if their smiles were good enough for Instagram. I thought about my own daughter and how close I'd come to letting her believe she had to perform to be loved. No, I didn't regret it. I started therapy a few weeks later. Not because I felt broken, but because I wanted to understand why I'd carried this burden so long without acting. Why I let fear of disruption keep me quiet. My therapist said something that stuck. Truth isn't always kind, but lies are never love. Meanwhile, Emma vanished online. Her account stayed down. No new posts, no explanations. Brian posted a single photo weeks later of the kids playing in the yard, captioned simply, "Home." And then, nothing. The silence was loud, and even though I'd lit the match, I didn't celebrate the fire. I just watched and waited, not sure what would grow from the ashes. The weeks after the leak were a roller coaster. Emma disappeared from social media, but the ripples of what I'd done crashed into every corner of our family. Brian left town for a few weeks, claiming he needed space. The kids stopped asking to take photos altogether. The family group chat, the place where we'd once shared jokes and plans, was a minefield of accusations and silence. Some relatives messaged me in private, expressing gratitude but caution. "You did the right thing," one cousin said, "but it's fractured everything." Others cut me out completely, blocking my number or unfriending me online. The family Christmas was awkward. Emma stayed home and the rest of us skirted around the elephant in the room. I was both praised and attacked online. Strangers sent messages thanking me for my courage. Others called me cruel and divisive. It was exhausting, and sometimes I wondered if the truth was worth this kind of pain. Brian messaged me one afternoon after a month of silence. "Thanks for telling the truth," he wrote. "I don't recognize Emma anymore, but I hope someday we find our way back." His words were a flicker of hope. Therapy helped me process everything. My therapist said the fallout was inevitable in exposing a lie so deeply rooted, but healing would come if we faced it honestly. I started understanding why I'd stayed silent for so long. Fear of family drama, loyalty, the desire to protect the image of a perfect family. But that perfection was an illusion. And now, with the veil lifted, something new could begin. Months later, Emma reached out. It was a text, simple and quiet. "Can we talk? I want to try." I hesitated, but the longing for healing outweighed the fear. We met at a coffee shop, tentative and careful. No phones, no cameras, just two people who had been through something difficult. Emma apologized, not just for what I'd exposed, but for the way she'd made her family feel, for the pressure she put on her kids and Brian, for losing herself in the pursuit of perfection. I told her I understood, that I knew it wasn't easy to face the truth, that I hoped this could be a start, not an end. We talked for hours about expectations, fear, and the difference between reality and social media illusions. For the first time, Emma admitted she felt trapped by her own image, terrified to show weakness. It was raw, it was messy, but it was real. Slowly, we began to rebuild trust. Emma deleted most of her past posts and promised to step back from the constant need to perform. She agreed to family vacations without cameras, where the focus was on living, not documenting. Brian came back, more present. The kids began to smile again, not for the camera, but because they felt safe. Our family wasn't perfect, but it was healing. I saw my own daughter grow more confident, more herself, free from the shadows of expectations. The whole experience taught me something vital, that truth, no matter how painful, is the foundation for real connection. And that sometimes showing the receipts isn't betrayal, it's salvation. The healing didn't happen all at once. It was awkward, stumbling. Sometimes one step forward, two steps back. I'd like to say the family bounced back overnight, but that isn't how wounds close. It took time. Honest conversations, patience, and letting go of what we thought we needed to look like to others. Emma and I started meeting every couple of weeks, sometimes just for coffee, sometimes walking in the park. She was different, quieter, slower to speak, less ready to laugh off uncomfortable truths. She admitted that she still missed the thrill of posting, the dopamine rush from likes, but she was learning to be content with quieter joys, real moments, the kind that can't be captured, only lived. Brian and Emma went to counseling together. It wasn't easy. There were fights, tears, and days they didn't speak, but gradually they found their way back to each other. The absence of social media meant they had to talk about the hard things, face the moments they would have rather filtered out. Their kids noticed the difference. The pressure faded, replaced by simple pleasures, game nights, bike rides, lazy Sundays. It was imperfect, sometimes messy, but always genuine. One evening, Emma invited my family over for dinner. No themes, no matching outfits. The kids ran wild in the backyard, grass-stained knees and all. Emma sat with me on the porch, hands wrapped around her mug. "Thank you," she said, eyes wet but clear. "Not just for telling the truth, but for staying, for giving me a chance to fix what I broke." I squeezed her hand, a silent promise that I wasn't going anywhere. For the first time, we talked about what we wanted for our kids. Joy that wasn't performative, love that wasn't conditional. I realized how deeply I'd internalized my own fears about appearances and how much lighter life felt without them. Emma apologized to Brian, to her children, to me, not once, but as often as it took to show she meant it. She let the kids decide when and if they wanted to be in a photo. Sometimes they did. More often they didn't. That was okay. I watched Rachel find new confidence, her laughter genuine, her worries about posing right gone. She started drawing again, filling sketchbooks with wild, unfiltered images of our family. The messy hair, the muddy shoes, the way we all crowded around a puzzle on rainy days. Emma's kids flourished too. Lucy became bolder. Max started cracking jokes again, and even the quietest moments felt lighter. Our parents started to let go too. The tension faded from holiday gatherings, replaced by honest curiosity. How are you really? Not just what you're willing to post. Sometimes I caught Emma looking at her old phone, scrolling through photos she'd never post again. Once she caught me watching and said, "I want to remember it all, not just the pretty parts." We laughed, both knowing how hard that lesson had been earned. Over time, I stopped needing my own notebook. Life no longer needed a record of lies or a tally of realness. I let the pages rest, the story finding its own ending in the quiet, everyday victories. I thought back to the night I posted the truth, to all the fear and trembling and second-guessing. I wondered if I'd do it the same way again. Maybe I would, maybe not, but I knew this. The cost of silence is far higher than the cost of disruption. What Emma and I rebuilt wasn't the old illusion. It was something rawer, better, anchored in forgiveness, humility, and the courage to see each other as we truly were. I realized I wasn't just angry at her. I'd been angry at the pressure we all felt, to be something we're not, to hide our mess, to call imperfection a flaw instead of what makes us human. In the end, it wasn't about exposing Emma. It was about freeing all of us. Life is quieter now, but it's so much richer. Our family trips aren't planned months in advance for the sake of photos. They're messy, spontaneous, sometimes a little chaotic, always real. The kids bicker, someone always forgets a jacket, and dinners are loud with laughter and the clatter of forks. I find myself cherishing the imperfection, the rainouts, the sunburns, the way someone inevitably drops a hot dog in the dirt and everyone laughs instead of groans. Emma and I still talk often. She still struggles some days. Old habits die hard. But she's different now. She asks her kids what they want to remember, not what looks best on camera. Sometimes the answer surprises her. Brian smiles more, the kids are lighter, and even the silences feel full of possibility. There are still photos, but they aren't staged. Sometimes a perfect moment happens, and we catch it without even trying. Sometimes we don't, and that's okay too. We print the blurry ones, the ones where someone blinked or made a silly face. They go on the fridge, reminders of who we are, messy, flawed, and wonderfully alive. One afternoon, Rachel came to me with a drawing. Our whole family, arms around each other, laughing. No one was posing, no one was perfect, and in the background, the Grand Canyon glowed in wild, joyful color. "This is us," she said. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to fix anything. Emma and I even talk about that summer sometimes, when the truth came crashing through. We don't rehash the arguments. We talk about what it cost us and what it gave back, a second chance, and the freedom to be honest. For anyone watching, I want to say this. Don't believe every perfect picture you see online. The story behind the photo is always messier, sometimes heartbreaking, sometimes hilarious, always real. The moments that matter most are the ones you live, not the ones you post. And if you're feeling pressure to curate, to keep up, to look perfect, know that you're not alone. Most of us are just trying to find our way. Sometimes it takes telling the truth, even when it hurts, to find the way back to what's real. So if you've made it to the end of this story, thank you. Thank you for sticking with me through the mess, the doubts, and the heartbreak. If you believe in real stories, the kind that don't fit in a filter or a hashtag, subscribe now. There's more to come, and I promise I'll always bring you the truth, even when it's hard. And before you go, don't forget to check out the next video I've picked for you. It's another wild story, and you won't believe what happened the next summer. Our adventures aren't perfect, but they're ours, and I hope you'll join us for every messy, honest, unforgettable moment. Because in the end, the real picture is always the one worth remembering.